Okay. Yes. So we'll start with vitamin D. Vitamin D, it is also called sunshine vitamin. Okay. Vitamin D, it is also called sunshine vitamin. So these are all the good sources of vitamin D. You can see these are all the sources of vitamin D, like cod liver oil, fish liver oil, eggs, okay, mushrooms, tuna fish, and all these are very good sources of vitamin D. Okay, so saltwater fish like salmons, sardines, herring, then liver, egg yolk. These are all good sources of vitamin D. So as long as our body it is exposed to adequate sunlight, as long as our body it is being exposed to the enough amount of sunlight, there will be little or no dietary requirement of vitamin D, because from when our skin, when our body is exposed to the sunlight, the cholesterol, the body can synthesize the active form of vitamin D. Okay, and also remember that milk is only a moderate source. It is not a good source of vitamin D. It is a moderate source of vitamin D. Coming to the RDA. RDA in preschool children. The RDA for preschool children is 10 micrograms per day. The RDA, the required dietary allowance for preschool children, it is around 10 micrograms per day. In children and adults, it is in between 5 to 10 micrograms per day. In children and adults, the required dietary allowance is between 5 to 10 micrograms per day. Whereas in pregnant and lactating women, this RDA of vitamin D, it is around 10 micrograms per day. So as age increases, for elderly people, again this requirement of vitamin D increases. So for people who are more than 60 years of age, the RDA of this vitamin D is around 15 micrograms per day. It is 15 micrograms per day. Okay, so remember that as long as the body it is exposed to adequate sunlight, there is little or no dietary requirement of vitamin D. So in people who are not exposed to sunlight, to adequate sunlight, for example, in Muslim women who follow that burqa system, in them, and also in you can see in some parts of India still women follow the parda system. So in these people there is very high chance and probability of those people going into this vitamin D deficiency if not supplied through the diet. Okay, if not supplied through the external one. And also in bedridden people also there is a reduced chance of adequate exposure to sunlight. Okay, so in them also there is high chance of going into this vitamin D deficiency. Now coming to the structure. If you want to know about the structure of vitamin D, you just remember that it is 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol. 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol, also called calcitriol. This calcitriol, it is the active form of vitamin D. Calcitriol is the active form of vitamin D. You need not learn this entire structure. Okay, you do not know about the structure, you just remember that this 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol, which is also called calcitriol, this is the active form of vitamin D. Then there are two major forms. Vitamin D exists in two forms, vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. Vitamin D2, it is ergocalciferol. And vitamin D3, it is called cholecalciferol. So there are two major forms of this vitamin D. One is vitamin D2 and the other is vitamin D3. D2 is ergocalciferol and D3 is cholecalciferol. So whatever the form of vitamin D is, it requires sunlight. The synthesis of whatever form, either D2 or vitamin D3, it requires sunlight. So sunlight is a prerequisite condition for this vitamin D synthesis. So if you see, okay, sorry. If you see this commercial ergot function, commercially available, this fungus, ergot fungus will be there. In that, the ergosterol in the presence of sunlight, it will be getting converted into ergocalciferol. It will be getting converted into ergocalciferol. That is your vitamin D2. This is the commercial part. But in nature, the cholesterol which is present in the human body, when exposed to sunlight, it gets dehydrogenated to form 7-dehydrocholesterol, which ultimately by a series of reactions, it will form cholecalciferol. That is nothing but vitamin D3. So here in both, whether it is a natural form or the commercial form of vitamin D, its sunlight is a prerequisite essential. Sunlight is very, very essential. So you can say that this vitamin D, it is a sunshine vitamin. It is a sunshine vitamin. Okay, so here it is the same thing. There are 7-dehydrocholesterol. It undergoes photolysis in the presence of sunlight to form secosterol. It forms secosterol, which ultimately forms cholecalciferol, or your vitamin D3. You can represent in any of the ways. Okay. Now coming to the activation of vitamin D, I told you in the presence of sunlight, cholesterol early will be getting converted into your active form of vitamin D. So let us see how that expressed. So the tissue cholesterol. One second. Yeah, this tissue cholesterol present in the skin, in the presence of UV rays, it gets converted into 7-dehydrocholesterol. The tissue cholesterol present, or the cholesterol present in the humans, in the presence of light, it gets converted into 7-dehydrocholesterol. The 7-dehydrocholesterol, it is a provitamin of vitamin A. Okay, the 7-dehydrocholesterol, it is a provitamin of vitamin D. So again, in the presence of the sunlight, what happens to this 7-dehydrocholesterol is it undergoes photolysis. To form cholecalciferol. Or vitamin D3. Forms cholecalciferol or vitamin D3, but this cholecalciferol, it is biologically inactive. Please make a note, this cholecalciferol, it is biologically inactive. This cholecalciferol in the liver, there is an enzyme 25-hydroxylase. In the liver, there is an enzyme named 25-hydroxylase, and in the presence and with the help of this 25-hydroxylase, this cholecalciferol, which is a biologically inactive form of vitamin D, gets converted into 25-hydroxycholecalciferol. Okay, it gets converted into 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, that is calcidiol. Now this 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, it is going to get bound to the globulin. And it is going to get transported in the plasma. So in the liver, this cholecalciferol or the biologically inactive form of this vitamin D, in the presence of this enzyme 25-hydroxylase, it is going to get converted into 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, also called calcidiol. This 25-hydroxycholecalciferol is bound to the globulin and it is transported in the plasma. And it ultimately reaches the kidneys. So in the kidney, again one enzyme, 1-alpha-hydroxylase enzyme is present. In the kidney, 1-alpha-hydroxylase enzyme is present, and this 1-alpha-hydroxylase enzyme, it is going to convert this 25-hydroxycholecalciferol into calcitriol. Calcidiol will become calcitriol. That is 1,25-dihydroxy. That is one more hydroxy group will be added at the first position. And it will form 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol or the calcitriol. Now this calcitriol is the biologically active form of vitamin D. Okay. this 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol or calcitriol, this is the active form, biologically active form of vitamin D, and this calcitriol only it goes and it reaches the target organ for to elicit its function. Is it clear? This activation of vitamin D, it is very important. They will ask you. It will be either a part of your essay question or they can also ask you your short answer questions. Okay, this is clear. Activation of vitamin D, it's clear, I hope. Yes. Okay. So this is also the same generation of calcitriol. See, you can either write it just as blind flowchart or you can also show it in the diagrammatic forms. Okay, better to go in flowchart form. It will not waste much time. Okay, this is how your cholecalciferol in the liver, it becomes 25 hydroxycholecalciferol in the presence of the enzyme 25 hydroxylase. The enzyme in the liver is 25 hydroxylase. Where this 25 hydroxylase, it gets bound to the, see here you can see in the 25th position there is a hydroxy group, OH group. Okay. Then this 25 hydroxycholecalciferol, it gets bound to the globulin and it is transported into the plasma. And ultimately it is going to reach your kidneys where your 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme is present. 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme is present in the kidney, and here one more OH group will be added. One more OH group will be added and it becomes this 25 hydroxycholecalciferol becomes 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol or calcitriol. Triol Y means here 3 alcohol groups are present. If you can see 1, 2 and 3. Okay, that's why it is calcitriol. That is 3 OL groups are present. Again, this is the same thing. In detail, we have given with the structure. That is cholesterol. It will be forming 7-dehydrocholesterol, which is a provitamin of vitamin D. In the sunlight, it becomes cholecalciferol, then 25 cholecalciferol, and ultimately you will get the active form of vitamin D. Now this active form of vitamin D, it is going to reach the target organs. Wherever the function is there, it is going to reach the target organs. Now, I told you calcitriol and calcitonin. These are two different terms. This calcitriol, it is the active form, biologically, physiologically, it is the active form of vitamin D. Being the active form of vitamin D, this is going to increase the blood calcium levels. Okay, calcitriol, it is an active form of vitamin D and its main function is to increase the blood calcium level. On the contrary, this calcitonin is nothing but it is a hormone. It is a peptide hormone which is released by the thyroid gland. Okay, calcitonin, it is a peptide hormone released from the thyroid gland. Okay, and this has an opposite action. That is, it is going to decrease the blood calcium level. It is going to decrease the blood calcium level. So, don't mix up calcitriol and calcitonin. Calcitriol, it is the active form of vitamin D. Its main function is to increase the blood calcium level. Whereas calcitonin, it is a peptide hormone. It is a peptide hormone released from the thyroid gland and it is going to decrease the blood calcium. Now, what is this calcitriol? How is it going to elicit its action? This calcitriol, it is going to go and bind to the specific nuclear receptors. That means it is going to go and bind to the specific vitamin D receptors. It is going to bind to the vitamin D receptors and it is going to form a complex. It is vitamin D or this calcitriol, it is going to go and bind with the nuclear receptors. That is vitamin D nuclear receptors and it will form a complex. Okay, and it is going to form a complex. Okay, it is going to bind with the vitamin D response elements. It is going to bind to the vitamin D response elements present on the DNA. Okay, it is going to, first this calcitriol, it is going to go and bind to the specific vitamin D receptors and then that complex again it is going to go and bind to the vitamin D response elements which are present on the DNA. Okay, which are present on the DNA and it is going to bring about changes in the transcription process. Okay, it is going to bring changes in the transcription process so that it will give the action of vitamin D. Now, this sometimes this vitamin D, it is also considered as a hormone. Sometimes this vitamin D, it is considered as a hormone. Why? Because this vitamin D, it is derived from the cholesterol. It has a sterol type structure. Okay, it is a sterol structure, and it is synthesized in the body. Okay, it is synthesized in the body and it is released into the circulation. And from the point of synthesis, it goes and reaches the target organs to elicit its function. Similar to hormones. Hormones also, they will be synthesized in one part of the body, they will be released into the circulation and they will go to the target organs and they're going to elicit their action. So because like hormones, this vitamin D also, it is synthesized at one place and it acts on the target organs which are far away from the site of synthesis. You can consider this vitamin D as a hormone. Okay, and also the mechanism of action. If you see the mechanism of action of this vitamin D, it is almost similar to that of the steroid hormone. So that is why in the structure, in the mode of synthesis, and in the mechanism of action, this vitamin D, it is similar to hormone. So sometimes you can consider this vitamin D even as a hormone. So once again, please listen. This vitamin D, it is sometimes considered as a hormone because like a hormone, this vitamin D is synthesized in one place and it acts on the target organs which are away from the site of synthesis. Also, its mechanism of action of vitamin D. The mechanism of action of vitamin D, it is similar to that of a steroid hormone. Okay, so sometimes or some people they consider this vitamin D as a hormone. Okay, in your Viva also they may ask you, why is this? In your Viva also they will ask why vitamin D is considered as a hormone. You should be able to tell. Okay. Now, this is how this vitamin D is acting. How this vitamin D is acting. So, this calcitriol, okay, whatever calcitriol is there, that is going to go and bind to the receptor protein. Okay, it is going to bind to the receptor protein and it is going to get, along with this receptor protein, it is going to get translocated into the nucleus. Okay, so calcitriol, it is going to bind to a receptor protein and it is going to form this calcitriol receptor complex. Okay, calcitriol, listen carefully, calcitriol, it binds to a receptor protein forming calcitriol receptor complex. Now this calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to be translocated into the nucleus. Okay, it is going to get translocated into that is it is going to enter into the nucleus, this calcitriol receptor complex. It will enter into the nucleus and this calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to bind to the DNA. Okay, it is going to bind to the DNA. And when it binds to the DNA, it brings changes in the transcription. It will bring changes in the transcription of mRNA. It will bring transcriptional changes of mRNA and it is going to help in this formation of this calcium binding protein. This calcium binding protein is going to be formed, which is going to increase the absorption and reabsorption of calcium in the target organs. Is that clear? So this is the mechanism of action of vitamin D. Okay, this is also important. Calcium, it is going to bind to the receptor protein to form calcium receptor complex. Okay, it is going to form calcium receptor complex and this calcium receptor complex, it is going to enter the nucleus. That is, it will get translocated into the nucleus and this calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to bind with the DNA. It is going to bind with the DNA and brings transcriptional changes, and so you get the calcium binding protein. So because of transcription, some protein is going to be formed, that calcium binding protein will be formed. And this calcium binding protein, it is going to increase the absorption and resorption of calcium in the target organs. Okay. Now coming to the biochemical functions of this vitamin D. Okay, biochemical functions. So vitamin D biochemical functions, we will read it under subheadings. Functions in the intestine, in the kidney, and in the bone. Okay, we'll read it under these headings. So first we'll see in the intestine. If you see the biochemical functions of vitamin D in the intestine, particularly in the intestinal villi cells. Okay, I told you this calcitriol, it is going to increase the calcium as well as phosphorus absorption from the intestine. Okay, this calcitriol, what it is going to do, it is going to increase calcium and phosphorus absorption in the intestinal cells. It is going to enter into the intestinal cells. I told you, okay, the same mechanism. It is going to enter into the intestinal cells. Receptor. This calcitriol, it is going to bind with the cytoplasmic receptor to form calcitriol receptor complex. Okay, this calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to be translocated into the nucleus. Okay, it is going to get translocated into the nucleus and it is going to bind with the DNA. This calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to enter into the nucleus and it is going to interact, it is going to bind with the DNA. The calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to interact with the DNA and it is going to bring transcriptional changes. Okay, so what it will do? It will stimulate the transcription of mRNA. It is going to stimulate the transcription of mRNA genes that are going to code for calbindin. Calbindin is nothing but a protein for calcium transport. Okay, that is calcium binding proteins will be synthesized. Okay, calcium binding proteins will be synthesized. And so when more and more calcium binding proteins are synthesized, what will do? It is going to lead to the increased absorption of calcium. It is going to lead to the increased absorption of calcium. So is it clear? The biochemical function of vitamin D in the intestine. Is it clear? Or you want me to repeat? Clear? Okay. Similarly, okay, so this is the in diagrammatic representation. See, here you can see from the blood, this calcitriol, it enters into the intestinal cell and then it binds with the receptor to form this calcitriol receptor complex. It forms a calcitriol receptor complex and this calcitriol receptor complex, it gets translocated or it enters into the nucleus. This is the nucleus. Here the calcitriol receptor complex, this is the calcitriol. This black one is the calcitriol and this pink one, it is a receptor, specific receptor for calcitriol. So this calcitriol receptor complex which is formed in the cytoplasm, it will be translocated into the nucleus. Okay, and here the calcitriol receptor complex, it is going to bind with the DNA. Okay, it is going to bind with the DNA and it is going to bring about transcriptional changes and ultimately these calbindin proteins will be synthesized. When more and more calbindin, once the proteins are synthesized, they will again be released into the cytoplasm. Yes? And when more amount of these calcium binding proteins like calbindin and all are synthesized, it is going to increase the calcium absorption. It is going to increase the calcium absorption. Okay? Now similarly, if you see the functions of vitamin D in the bone, function of vitamin D in the bone. In the bone, this vitamin D, it increases the mineralization of the bone. That is, mineralization of bone means it increases the calcifications of bone. Why? Because of the increased activity of osteoblasts. Osteoblasts help in increasing the mineralization, whereas osteoclasts have the opposite effect. Okay, so in the bone, this vitamin D, it increases the mineralization of the bones due to the increased activity of osteoblasts. Okay, this calcitriol, it is going to stimulate the osteoblasts. Okay, it's going to stimulate the osteoblasts. They will be secreting this alkaline phosphatase, this enzyme alkaline phosphatase. So, this even the local concentration of the phosphate level also will be increased. Okay, so this calcium as well as phosphorus concentration has increased, so there will be more and more mineralization of the bone. Okay, that is more and more calcification of that bone. Now, coming to the kidneys. So calcitriol mostly acts in, you should see in the convoluted tubule. This calcitriol, it is going to help or increase the reabsorption of calcium as well as phosphorus in the distal convoluted tubule. It is going to increase the reabsorption of calcium and phosphorus in the distal convoluted tubules. Therefore, both these minerals, calcium as well as phosphorus, they will be conserved. This calcitriol, it is going to increase the reabsorption of calcium and phosphorus in the distal convoluted tubule. So, these both minerals, that is calcium and phosphorus, these are conserved. Now, the next important part is the regulation of production of calcitriol. See, I told you this calcitriol is going to increase the serum calcium and phosphorus level. So, when this serum calcium and phosphorus level is going on increasing, that will in turn it is going to affect or influence the synthesis of calcitriol. Okay, that is, it is going to have a feedback control. Okay, so this levels of calcium and phosphorus in turn they influence the biosynthesis of this calcitriol. That is, there is a feedback control. Now, hypocalcemia. This hypocalcemia, when there is hypocalcemia, it induces the secretion of parathyroid hormone, okay, PTH. It is going to increase the secretion of, or it is going to hypocalcemia, it is going to induce the secretion of this PTH. In turn, this PTH, it is going to activate the 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme in the kidney, okay. So when there is, if at all there is hypocalcemia, it is going to increase or it is going to stimulate the secretion of this PTH, parathyroid hormone. This parathyroid hormone, in turn, it is going to activate this 1-alpha hydroxylase present in the kidney. And we all know that this 1-alpha hydroxylase, it is going to convert calcidiol into calcitriol. So in hypocalcemia, once hypocalcemia is setting in, it is going to increase the secretion of parathyroid hormone. That parathyroid hormone will activate the 1-alpha hydroxylase in the kidney. And 1-alpha hydroxylase, it is going to convert the calcidiol into calcitriol. So again, your vitamin D, it is increasing. Active form of vitamin D is increasing. So what it is going to do? It is going to help in increasing the serum calcium and phosphorus. So this hypocalcemia will be corrected. Okay. Similar opposite is true with respect to hypercalcemia. Okay, the other way around. In hypercalcemia, what will happen? This PTH secretion will be decreased. So 1-alpha hydroxylase activity also will decrease. So calcitriol also synthesis or conversion of this calcidiol into calcitriol also will be reduced. So the serum calcium level will come down. Okay. This calcitriol, it is going to replenish the serum calcium. Calcitriol is going to replenish the serum calcium by how? It is going to increase the intestinal absorption of calcium. Okay, it is going to increase the intestinal absorption of calcium. It is going to increase the calcium reabsorption from the renal tubule. It is going to increase the calcium reabsorption from the renal tubules, and so it is thereby decreasing its excretion. And it is also going to increase the calcium mobilization from the bones also. So in all these methods, it is going to increase the serum calcium levels. Okay. Now, decrease the serum phosphate. So decrease the serum phosphate, what happens? It is going to stimulate, it is directly going to stimulate the 1-alpha hydroxylase in the kidney. So what happens? Again, this 1-alpha hydroxylase, what will happen? It is going to convert your calcidiol into calcitriol. And so calcitriol will again increase the intestinal absorption of phosphate and also increase the reabsorption in the renal tubules. Even in the intestine also, it is going to help in the absorption of phosphate, and in the renal tubules, it will help in the reabsorption. So your phosphate, like serum phosphorus levels will come back to the normal. So in case of decreased phosphorus, decreased calcium, it was first acting upon it was first going to induce the synthesis of this release of parathyroid hormone. But this decreased serum phosphate, it will directly go and stimulate the 1-alpha hydroxylase of the kidneys. And this calcitriol, it will increase the intestinal absorption of phosphate and increase the reabsorption in the renal tubule. So the serum phosphorus, it will be back to normal. Calcitriol, it is going to inhibit the activity of 1-alpha hydroxylase in the kidney. So what happens? Excess calcitriol, when there is excess of calcitriol, it is going to activate the 25 hydroxylase. Okay, instead of 1 alpha hydroxylase, it is going to activate the 25 hydroxylase. So as a result of which, what you will be getting, instead of getting 125 dihydroxypolycalciferol, you will be getting 24-25 dihydroxypolycalciferol will be increased. So that way, it is going to, this when there is excess of calcitriol, it is going to by itself, that is with biofeedback mechanism, it is going to adjust the levels. Okay, so till here everything is clear? Or you want me to repeat? Okay, so that is with respect to how the vitamin D is acting and how the levels of vitamin D has been regulated, thereby how this calcium and phosphorus levels are being regulated. So next we will go to the deficiencies. So why there is this deficiency? I told you this is a sunshine vitamin, and sunlight will be available most of the places, most of the times. So why is this vitamin D deficiency? Vitamin D deficiency, mainly it will be because of inadequate sunlight exposure. Inadequate sunlight exposure. In inadequate sunlight exposure, as I already told you, in Muslim women who follow the burqa system, and also in females who follow the parda system, and in people who are bedridden, in critically ill patients who are bedridden, in them also exposure to sunlight will be inadequate. So these people have every chance of going or developing this vitamin D deficiency. And also the other reason could be there is a poor access to the micronutrients rich food. Poor access to micronutrients rich food. And also some underlying disorder or deformity, some underlying disorder that is going to limit the absorption of vitamin D. Okay. Then inside conversion of this active into active metabolites, or if there is any enzyme, either 1 alpha dihydroxylase deficiency or 25 hydroxylase deficiency also can lead to the deficiency of vitamin D. No, the deficiency manifestations of vitamin D. This all of us know. Deficiency of vitamin D in children, it is called rickets. Deficiency of vitamin D in children is called rickets, whereas in adults it is called osteomalacia. In children, deficiency of vitamin D is called rickets, and in adults it is called osteomalacia. So if you see the clinical features of rickets in children, there is insufficient or incomplete mineralization of bones. There is insufficient or incomplete mineralization of bones. So because of this insufficient mineralization of the bones, these bones become very soft. These bones become very soft and very flexible. Okay, they become very soft and very flexible. And deformity, this deformity mostly you'll be seeing in the weight-bearing bones. Weight-bearing bones like your femur, tibia, fibula. So there is more of the deformity in the weight-bearing bones. Now because of this deformity, there in the weight-bearing area, you will be seeing bowing of legs, knock knees. You will be seeing bowing of legs and knock knees. And also another characteristic feature of rickets in children, it is rickety rosary. Rickety rosary, that is, there will be some bead-like appearance on the ribs. There is beading of ribs. And also there is pigeon chest. There is pigeon chest. So these are all classical features of these rickets, classical features of rickets in children. There is insufficient or incomplete mineralization of bones. There is insufficient or incomplete mineralization of bones. The bones become soft. They become very soft, and they become there on the weight-bearing area. What happens is these bones will be bent. Weight-bearing bones like your femur, tibia, fibula. There will be bowing of the legs, or there will be knock knees, and there will be rickety rosary. That is, there is enlargement of epiphyses at the lower end of the ribs. The epiphyses at the lower end of the ribs, they will be enlarged, and it will give like appearance as if there are beads. Okay, so there is enlargement of epiphyses at the lower end of the ribs and the costochondral junction, which leads to beading of the ribs. And also there is pigeon chest, which is very classical. These features of rickets are very classical. You can see in a patient and easily you can recognize. Pigeon chest means generally the transverse diameter, the transverse transverse diameter of the chest is more than the anteroposterior diameter. But if the anteroposterior diameter and the transverse diameter are almost the same, it gives rise to an appearance of a pigeon chest. Okay, see, these are the pictures. You can see here. These are knock knees. Okay, if you can see, you will never miss out on these things. Okay, this is knock knees. You can see in the picture, this is knock knees, and here this are bow legs. Okay, there is bowing of the legs. Okay, there is bowing of the legs. Here, this is a picture rickety rosary. So you can see in this picture, you can see here like beads in the costochondral junctions. These are nice like beads. You can see they're enlarged, like appearing like beads. So this is rickety rosary. And if you can see in this picture only, there is pigeon chest also. This is anteroposterior diameter and the transverse diameter. They are almost the same. Okay. Now these are the signs of rickets. Okay. Weight bearing bones, they get bent. Okay. The bow legs, or you can have knock knees, and here cause bleeding at the epiphysis. See, this bowing of the legs, in this first picture you can see there are bowed legs. This bowing of the legs, it is called genovarum. Bowing of the legs, it is called genovarum. Okay. Then the second picture, this is knock knees. This is knock knees or wind-swept knees. You can also call them as wind-swept knees. Knock knees or wind-swept knees, also called as genovalgum. So genovarum means bow legs. Genovalgum means knock knees or wind-swept knees. This is rickety rosary or rachitic rosary. That is, there is costochondral swelling or beaded-like appearance of the costochondral junction. And this is a pot belly, Harrison sulcus and a pot belly. Now what happens in the pathogenesis of rickets? First, when there is an absence of adequate growth, that is, there is a decrease in supply of 125 dihydroxyvitamin D. That is the active form of vitamin D. It is decreased. There is a decreased supply. So there is decrease when vitamin D, active form of vitamin D, it is reduced. The intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphorus also will reduce. Yes. So I told you at that time there is release of this parathyroid hormone. This parathyroid hormone, what it is going to do? It is going to again stimulate this hydroxylase, 1 alpha hydroxylase enzyme in the kidney, and therefore again you will be getting this 125 hydroxyvitamin D3 in the kidney. So again you will be getting this active form of vitamin D. And there is again mobilization of calcium and phosphorus from the bone. Then when there is relative hyperparathyroidism, there is phosphaturia. There is phosphaturia which leads to negative phosphorus balance, and hypophosphatemia. Okay. Now, I told you one type of rickets is vitamin D deficiency. This is a classical type of rickets, the classical vitamin D deficiency rickets. Now, there are other types of rickets. Okay, there are different types of rickets. Apart from your classical vitamin D deficiency rickets, there is also hypophosphatemic rickets. Hypophosphatemic rickets, it is mainly because of defective renal tubular absorption of phosphate. Hypophosphatemic rickets, it is because of defective renal tubular reabsorption of phosphate. And the other type of rickets is vitamin D resistant rickets. Vitamin D resistant rickets, which is found in association with this Fanconi syndrome. This is found to be associated with Fanconi syndrome. Then renal rickets. Renal rickets, what happens is in some kidney diseases, even though vitamin D is available, this calcitriol will not be synthesized. Calcitriol will not be synthesized. And this is calcitriol is only the active form of vitamin D. So in some renal diseases, there will be some problem with alpha 1 hydroxylase enzyme. Therefore, your calcitriol will not be synthesized, and person will develop rickets. That type of rickets is called renal rickets. So for these patients, if you give calcitriol, they will respond very well. Then end organ refractoriness to 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol will also lead to rickets. Okay. And how do you diagnose this vitamin D deficiency, or how will you diagnose that the patient is having vitamin D deficiency or rickets? You can say serum calcium levels. The serum calcium levels will be low. Phosphorus levels also may be low. Then alkaline phosphatase level will be high. Okay, the serum calcium and phosphorus will be low, but alkaline phosphatase level will be high. On arterial blood gas analysis, it may relieve the metabolic acidosis. In X-ray, it will be very clearly visible. Bow legs will be very clearly visible. That is outward curves of these long bones of the legs. Outward curving of the long bones of the neck, it can be visualized even in the X-ray. In even normally while seeing also you can say, but in the X-ray you can visualize bow legs, the decreased bone opacity. Because there is decreased mineralization of the bone, or there is poor bone mineralization, the opacity of the bone also will be reduced. Okay, then the treatment. Natural or artificial light, these are effective therapeutically, and also oral administration of the vitamin also can be considered. Now, the counterpart of rickets in adults. For children, we are saying vitamin D deficiency, it is going to lead to rickets. Similarly, the counterpart of rickets in adults, it is osteomalacia. There is insufficient mineralization of the bones. Here also there is insufficient mineralization of the bones. Therefore, there is increased osteoporosis. There will be increased softness of the bones. So even with a very minute injury also, disturbance or minute injury also, they are more prone to fractures. So they will be more easily prone to fractures even upon a minute injury also. So there is a slight decrease in the serum calcium and phosphorus levels, and also there is an increase in the serum alkaline phosphatase. So the counterpart of rickets in adults, it is osteomalacia. There is insufficient mineralization of the bone, so it will lead to osteoporosis. So there will be increased softness of the bones. So on major trauma or a major increased pressure, on little pressure or little trauma also, they will be easily prone to fracture of that bone. There is a slight decrease in the serum calcium and the phosphorus level, and serum alkaline phosphatase will be increased. So other diseases, what else can be associated with vitamin D? So gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, small size of infants, these are thought to be associated. These are the other diseases related to vitamin D deficiency. There is gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, small size of infants. All these are said to be related to vitamin D. Now, maternal vitamin D deficiency, it can lead to impairment of the bone quality after birth. Anemia, hypocellularity of the bone marrow, and increased susceptibility to infection also can be, because it can also be seen in vitamin D deficiency. And also it is said that there is a higher risk of cardiovascular diseases in these people. Now, this vitamin D, it is again fat soluble vitamin. So, whatever excess is there, it will be stored in the organs, and it is going to lead to toxicity. So, toxicity of vitamin D. So, when you take it in very high doses, it will become toxic. So, amongst all the vitamins, this vitamin D, it is the most toxic of all vitamins. Taking more than 1500 units per day over a long period, it will lead to toxicity. The symptoms of toxicity, there will be weakness. Okay, the toxicity of vitamin D symptoms are there will be weakness, polyuria, loss of appetite, nausea, intense thirst, and also weight loss. Okay. There will be weakness, polyuria, loss of appetite, nausea, intense thirst, weight loss, etc. Now there may be hypercalcemia. Hypercalcemia, what it will lead to even calcification of soft tissues also will become calcified. The vascular renal tissues, all these soft tissues also it will lead to calcification when there is hypercalcemia. And also there will be deposition of calcium in other organs like your arteries, kidneys, etc. Okay, these are all the causes of vitamin D. I already told you the causes of vitamin D deficiency, that is inadequate exposure of sunlight. Inadequate dietary intake, although it is very rare. The nutrition deficiency of vitamin D, it is very rare. Okay, if there is any decreased intestinal absorption, like any obstructed jaundice or steatorrhea, then there is a chance of vitamin D deficiency. Then when there is impaired activation of this vitamin D, when you are not getting into the active form of vitamin D because of either any hepatic or renal disorders, that also can lead to deficiency. And hepatic rickets, renal rickets you will be getting when there is an impaired activation. Okay, so that is with respect to vitamin D. Yes, so we completed vitamin A and vitamin D. So these two are clear? Vitamin A and vitamin D are clear? Yes, these two, vitamin A and vitamin D, they will be asking as an essay questions. They are potential essay questions as well as short questions also. Sai Bhargavi, are you there? Sai Bhargavi. Sai Bhargavi is not there? Huh?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes? Nagasri, yes, tell me. Nagasri, you are not audible. You are not audible.
Hello.
Yes, tell me, Nagasri. Nagasri, you type what you want to ask? It is your voice is breaking. Nagasri? Nagasri, actually your voice is breaking. So you type it. If I can answer your question. Oh. Not at all clear, ma'am.
Madam.
Yes, who is this? Vinil.
Roll number 1, ma'am.
Tell me, Vinil.
Ma'am, there in deficiency symptoms, what is ankylosis of nails, ma'am?
Ankylosis of the nails means? Yes. See. This, your nails, they will be easily breakable. Okay. They will become brittle.
Yes, ma'am.
In this picture only now you are asking? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Got, ma'am.
Sai Bhargavi, are you there? Yes. Sai Bhargavi. Okay. Can you enumerate deficiency of vitamin D? Okay, okay, no
Maybe
problem.
speaker problem to me.
Okay, no problem. Yes, type. Okay. Okay. Listen, all of you read about this vitamin A and vitamin D. Okay, any doubts you can ask in the next class. Actually, your voice is not coming to me, so you can ask in the next class. Okay, I wanted to give you all some work first. Okay. Fanconi syndrome. What is Fanconi? I told you here somewhere. Yeah, here. In this slide, I told you this vitamin D resistant rickets. It is found to be associated with Fanconi syndrome. It is found to be associated with Fanconi syndrome. So, you read and tell me what is Fanconi syndrome. In the next class, I'm going to ask you what is Fanconi syndrome. Okay? Now, I just say somehow I couldn't get what is your doubt.
Ma'am,
and your voice is it's not clear, your voice is not clear.
I texted ma'am.
You texted, that's what I'm trying to check here. I can see only your Sai Bhargavi's messages. Okay. Okay. So see, vitamin in the bone, its function it is going to activate the osteoblasts in the if you see this slide in the intestine, it is going to help in the absorption. Okay, Nagasri, in the intestine, this calcitriol it is going to increase calcium and phosphorus absorption. Yes, but when it is coming to the bone, it is going to help in osteoblastic activity. It is not going to have the same activity on every organ. In the bone, it is having osteoblastic, not osteoclastic. If it is demineralization of bone, then it should have osteoclastic activity. But here, this calcitriol, it is going to stimulate the osteoblasts, not the osteoclasts. So that's why there is mineralization of the bone. Yes? Yes, Nagasri. In the intestine, it is going to absorb. In the intestinal villi and this kidney convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubules, it is going to help in the reabsorption of calcium. But when you are coming to the bone, it is going to stimulate the osteoblasts. Osteoblasts are going to have mineralization activity, not demineralization activity. Okay? Nagasri,
Yes, ma'am.
Go and read again. You write down the points, read again.
Definition of osteoblasts, ma'am, rather than osteoclast.
Osteoblasts.
Any specific? Any specific reason to activate the osteoblasts, ma'am, rather than osteoclasts?
See, that particular receptors for this calcitriol will be present on osteoblasts only. That's why it is going to go and activate these blasts. I told you how it is acting, no, in our previous slides. Here, the action of vitamin D, here, in this slide. So this particular receptors which are present for this calcitriol to bind, they will be present on these osteoblasts. Okay, I think I crossed. Yes, Nagastri? Hello? Hello? Nagasri? Nagasri? Okay, Nagasri. So the receptors will be present on the osteoblasts. That's why calcitriol is going to go and it is going to stimulate the osteoblasts. You see the function, how this vitamin D is acting. Okay, once again you read that part also. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. I hope your doubt is clarified, Nagasri. Reply, Nagasri. Nagasri. Nagasri, you type. Your doubt is clarified. Your voice is not at all audible. Okay. Thank you. You read once again, it will be clear for you. Okay? We'll continue in the next class, Amma. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.